Partner 9, Michael Aquino, will interview Sergeant Joe Edwards, who fought in the Vietnam War.
Now.
What is your full name?
Joseph Tees and Thomas Edwards.
When and where were you born?
Rome, New York, 18 June 46. Rome Hospital.
What education did you receive prior to your military service?
High school graduate from RFA in 65, and I was a part-time student at MVCC and working full-time at French Royal General Cable when I was drafted.
So you were drafted. And what year were you drafted?
1967.
What branch of service did you enter?
United States Army.
And why did you want to be in this branch?
I was drafted into it.
You went into it.
Right.
Before you went to basic training, what were you expecting before going in?
As far as what was I expecting?
Like how tough would it be, and were you excited, scared? Or?
I was a little reticent because I was the oldest child in a single-parent family, and I had a sister and brother and a mother that I had to take care of, and I wasn't extremely happy to be drafted, but there was nothing I could do.
Where did you go for basic training?
Fort Benning, Georgia, Columbus, Georgia.
And what did they teach you there?
They taught me how to survive, and all the other things that apply to combat.
Now, since this was your first real experience with the military life, what did you think about it? Were you happy there? Or?
I adapted. I knew how to do the hospital corners on my bunk before I went.
So what units were you then assigned to?
Through basic training, I was all training, 1st Training Brigade, then I went to Fort Polk, Louisiana, to the 3rd Training Brigade, getting ready for Vietnam. This ARVN training, ARVN, Army Republic of Vietnam training. And then I went to Fort Howard in the Canal Zone for Jungle Warfare School, and then I rotated home for my 30-day leave prior to leaving for Tennessee country.
What type of equipment did you use?
In the field, we carried what is described as a rucksack, but it's a large Alice pack. Alice is an acronym for a carry-all. It carried, well, it's about 3,800 cubic inches of supplies, clothing, ammo, food, and everything else we needed.
So how was this equipment? Was it good, or?
Very good.
Very good.
Yeah.
And when did you leave the U.S.?
I left in the first week of August of '67.
What were some of your first impressions when you got to Vietnam?
We flew backwards in a C-141 to Yokota, Japan, and from there we refueled. We left McCord Air Force Base, Fort Lewis, Washington. We flew over the North Pacific to Yokota, Japan, and then from there we refueled, and then we flew into Tonson Air Force Base, or correction, Cam Bay. And we disembarked from the aircraft, and they let us sit on the runway for 5 hours in the sun, and it was very hot.
What area was your unit assigned?
When we were brought in country, we were assigned to the 4th Infantry Division, which is up in the Central Highlands, 2-Corps area. We worked primarily in an area they call 3 Tango, where Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam met.
And what was the terrain like?
Hilly.
Hilly?
And then when as you got close to the coast, it was Highway 10 or 14, I can't remember now. It got rolling terrain. The Michelin plantation, rubber plantation was there. The French had some tea plantations. But the closer you got to 3 Tango, where the 3 countries met, the terrain got real steep.
So when was your first experience under fire, and what did you feel about this? And, or how, actually, when was your first experience, and how did it start?
My first experience with combat, we were getting ready for, we were in country with a division, and we were in an area near the Michelin rubber plantation, and we set up, we encamped with a armored unit, 8-inch howitzers. And about 2 o'clock in the morning, a buddy of mine and I were sleeping in our little tent where 2 poncho liners were together, and they had a fire mission. And this 8-inch gun took off and took our tent right with it. That was my introduction to offensive combat.
So what were your duties while serving in Vietnam?
I started out as a gunner in a fire team. Then as combat increased, guys were wounded or killed, and you just moved up to fill in. I went from a fire team leader to a squad leader to a platoon sergeant.
Can you talk about Operation Francis Marion?
Operation Francis Marion was an operation that began in right after the monsoon of '67, so that would put it about April or May. And what we were doing is, what the division was doing, was to form a blockade against the North Vietnamese. When the rain stopped, the enemy would start moving munitions and supplies to the south. The 4th Division became a blocking force, and in May, Francis Marion really took off, and the 4th Division got into some real heavy combat. I met some fellas in September, I think it was, or October, when we were heading up to Dak To. We were going to do the same maneuver. And they had lost, in 3 days, they had lost, I think, 70-some-odd men out of a company. And when you send a company to the field, you have 150 men strong. But it's gradually depleted from wounds, killed in action, guys that get sick. By the time we were in Dak To, from when we first went to the field in September, we had 145 men when we started out. And when I assumed the platoon sergeant's job, just prior to the battle for Dak To, we had like 76 men who were depleted.
Can you talk about Operation Paul Revere?
Paul Revere was another operation that commenced during the rainy season. What you would do, you would chase around the enemy, whether it be the North Vietnamese or the Viet Cong, and you just keep harassing them, harassing them. And that culminated in the Tet 68 offensive. We were in Dak To in November, when the largest battle was held. The 4th Division and the 173rd ran up against 5 NVA divisions. I think we were in the field 1,500 men strong against approximately 7,500. Greatly outnumbered. We took up a position on what they call a T-bone or dog bone hill. It all depends who it was that was describing it. It was 2 peaks with a saddle in between. That's why they call it a dog bone. And we watched the 38th get brutalized.
So these are intense.
Very intense.
You would say Operation Francis Marion was the most intense?
Till that time, yeah. Till Tet 68.
Oh, okay.
And Tet 68, they were downtown Pleiku, which was just about 12 miles from the 4th Division base camp.
You said it was 7,500 to 1,500?
We had about 1,500 men, I think, if I remember correctly. My figures could be wrong. American against 7,500 North Vietnamese. It was 5 NBA divisions.
So can you explain what your daily schedule was like?
Daily schedule was, it all depended if you were out on LP, which is what they call a listing post, or an ambush patrol. You'd do that all night, and then prior to sunup, you'd come in. A lot of times you'd come in after sunup, because the North Vietnamese had a tendency to attack you just prior to sunup. And they would normally come out from the direction of the sun, because the sun was in your eyes, and you had difficulty firing at them. But we'd have a stand to maybe around 4 o'clock, 4:30 in the morning, and everybody's awake.
How about the food? You have an empty stomach all day, or?
Well, I went there 2:10, and I come home in great shape, 2:10 or 2:05, and when I come home, I was 152 pounds.
It says that you were injured. Could you explain how you got hurt?
Our first major engagement in September of '67, I was injured and received a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star with a V device. We were taking enemy fire. I moved, by this time I was a squad leader. I moved my squad back up to a secure area, and we left some ammo out front, so I had to get on. I wouldn't let these guys go. I had a straight shot at it, so I took off running for the ammo and pulled all the rucksacks together, tied them together, and pulled them back up the hill. And then there was a recon lieutenant. I could hear him on the radio, but we couldn't see him, so I went out forward and I picked him up and I dragged him back into the perimeter. And then we continued to fight. And we'd set up, where we had set up, there was a sniper in the tree nest, so I got shot right in the shoulder and the back. And Terry Mazzata from California, who I never liked, he and I were always at each other's throat when we were in Infantry. I learned to love him because he took the sniper out of the tree and saved my life.
So where did you go after your injury? Where did they?
I went to Quinyan, down on the coast. They had it surgically removed. Oh, wait a minute. When I got hit first time? I take that back. No, I went to I think to the trains area. We were still on the field. Wasn't even back to base camp. A medic took the shrapnel out of my shoulder.
Can you talk about Sergeant Jimmy Moore?
Drill Sergeant James Moore, boxer, extraordinaire. Big belly on him, big neck. You can tell he was a boxer. His nose from ear to ear, and I grew to like him because he had a way about him, and he used to tip his hat down, drill sergeant campaign hat, DI hat, whatever you want to call it, and he used to get right in his face, and if he answered wrong, he said, with his old southern voice, he'd say, "You wouldn't be bullshitting a drill sergeant, would you?" I don't know if I'm not supposed to say that, but Drill Sergeant Moore was the guy that if you were ever in combat, he's the one you want to be with. He was tough as nails. He drank every night, and I could tell he drank wine every night because it'd be in your face the next day. But he would take us out for our 5-mile run, and he would run backwards the whole 5 miles every day. He was a strap troop. He was a wonderful man. Excuse me. And I had the impression, or the idea that I would make a good officer someday. He wouldn't let me go. I got a cold, I'm sorry. And he said, "You're going to be an NCO."
Were there any officers that you did not like?
Yes, it is in there. Our commanding officer, Captain Charles F. Burke.
So how did you keep in touch with those that you had back home?
Yes. I found some guys through the internet when I was just telling you about today, a couple of guys I met on the internet just in passing. We hooked up with the Division 173rd, which is a brigade of the 82nd Airborne Division. I had some friends there, and I still have some friends in the 4th Division.
During the war, how were your relationship with the Vietnam people?
The Vietnamese were wonderful people. Excuse me. However, the Montagnards were much nicer. They were the villagers that were around the base camps. They were recruited heavily by the American government to be scouts, Kit Carson scouts, to assist division or alert snipers. Can you cut this? I gotta clear my throat.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Thanks for the water.
What do you remember the most about your military service?
The camaraderie of the guys. We were all sharing the same misery, and you had some guys that were complainers. I had one fellow from who shall remain nameless. He was up in Malone. He was a chow hound, and he was always bitching because he didn't have enough to eat. But he was our point man. He swung the meanest machete ever. You never crossed this guy. But it was our ability to share the misery with one another and to survive and to pull together so to ensure that we all, hopefully all of us survive. We've become great friends. With all the best intentions, just like any other soldier had the best intentions. Hey, we'll hook up with each other when we get out, when we get back to the world, after the flight to America. FTA doesn't mean anything else but flight to America.
What experiences left the greatest impression on you?
Just
the camaraderie too?
The camaraderie, yeah, absolutely. To know that I've made lifelong friendships, it's wonderful.
How did you feel about the rotation system that was implemented during the war?
Hated it. There was distinction, a definite distinction between the enlisted personnel, the NCOs, and the officer corps. We all went together, we all started together, we should have all finished together. Mr. Carey, who got 3 Purple Hearts, noted that he got out of the field after 4 months. Even if you didn't get wounded, the officer corps rotated out at the end of 6 months and left the PFC, the Spec 4, the sergeant, and all the other NCOs there in the field. He went back to base camp and on with his career.
So did you have a countdown for your tour?
A countdown?
Yeah. And what were your last days like?
It got a little gruff. The countdown was a short timer, and you didn't do a whole heck of a lot. Kind of like, you were very protective of yourself.
Yeah.
You didn't go out of your area. Once you got back to base camp, you really didn't go near the flight line. You didn't really go near the perimeter. You didn't talk to anyone. And you still, of course, you would never speak to a Vietnamese because you didn't know what side they were actually on. I remember back in base camp, our barber, I had a picture of him. I know I have a picture of him on the slides. And a buddy of mine, Duke English from Oklahoma City, sent me a picture of him. And we found our barber at the North Gate one morning with a Bangalore torpedo between his legs. Bangalore torpedo is a mine. It's a continuous mine that you link together and you push it, and then you put another piece in. It comes in 8-foot sections. And he was shot before he could detonate the mine. That was our company barber. That's the guy that was putting the razor to the side of your face. He was the one being paid by the United States government.
When did you return home from Vietnam?
The last time, January of '69. I come home, went back, come home.
And so you vowed to all your buddies in the war that you would get a hold of them?
Yes. And now that I have more time and it's a lot easier with the computer, I found a lot of friends. I'm still looking for Freddie Kelly out of Nebraska. I got a picture of him. Bob Sahesky, I haven't seen him. Fernando Cruz, I found him. Donnie Allen, I found. Nick Albano, I found. They're all in Tampa. I had these guys as friends from basic training through advanced infantry training at Fort Polk. We all went together. I went to the Canal Zone, the Jungle Warfare School, but we all hooked up together in McCord Air Force Base, Fort Lewis, Washington. We all made the same flight over. It's good to know.
When you were back in America, what jobs did you have?
I worked on construction, and I went to college at night. And then I took the civil service exam for the Rome City Fire Department.
How was it difficult to adapt back to everyday life?
It's difficult to adapt every day of my life. And a lot of guys feel the same way. But we just adapt.
So would you recommend going into the service to any high school senior to senior?
You have to understand that the military that I was in was primarily a draftee, a conscript army at that time, because the forces after the Korean War were shrunken. Peacetime budget, just like after Vietnam, same thing. Everything was shrunk down so the taxpayer wouldn't be shouldered with unnecessary budgets. But now that the military is a professional military, I don't see a thing wrong with it. I'm very proud of the men and women today.
And how has your military experience influenced your life?
It's been positive. I was raised in a real tight Catholic family, and to be respectful to everybody. And that's the way the military bearing is. Once you learn the military bearing, it's hard to describe. You'll have it for the rest of your life.
And do you have any final thoughts?
I wish this war in Iraq was over, get everybody home. But biblically, it's always been said that there will always be wars and rumors of wars. So accept it.